Alright, so welcome back to installment 2 of the LS2 Valiant 2 and the Sena 50C. So from yesterday's video, the purchase was made, the installation was commenced, and it progressed to a point where I took it out last night and was reasonably happy with where the mount was sitting. However, it was quite a ways back, and therefore, so on my left hand side, and therefore getting a fair bit of the helmet, and it was sort of skew so it was off to the left and wasn't too straight in terms of where the road, the direction of the road. So I took it back, and decided that I'd progress with trying to install the proprietary gear mount, so from the 50C box, which in turn left a few sort of dilemmas and hassles with the LS2 Valiant 2 helmet. In particular, the slider was unable to be moved, and therefore the sunshade was is constantly in the down position. Now, obviously, that's less than ideal. Come night time, inclement weather, poor visibility, etc., etc. So, so that was a compromise that I sort of went with last night. Got up this morning, got a heat gun onto the old mount of the 50C, and I've got it tucked away here. I thought that the actual mount would melt to a point where it'd be unusable, and I was correct. So probably used the heat gun for about a minute and a half, 2 minutes tops, and that was the end state. Now, I don't know how good that shows it, but you can see there that, you know, it's quite deformed, to say that to call it one word, and therefore rendered inoperable. So I sent an email off to Sena Australia this morning, hoping that they could, you know, basically send me a new stick-on mount. And you'd imagine, like an international company like Sena, why that particular mount isn't in their parts catalogue, albeit the 50C is a new sort of unit, but even for the 50R and the 50S, I don't see sort of second mounts basically in the parts catalogue. So that could be an issue. And so what I did was I took the bike out for a ride today, down to Bateman's Bay, and positioned the proprietary mount and the unit in a few different areas. And I've got a video which will follow this of what I think is probably the best setup you can get in terms of camera position for the 50C that's achievable on the LS2 Valiant 2. However, with the limitations, like I said before, where you can't use the visor. So I'll swing this camera around off my ugly mug now and bring it onto the LS2. So what you can see is the mount's been removed. It was sort of sitting here, the Velcro, the 3M adhesive mount with the heat gun. As you can see there, it's caused a bit of blistering, but it's a bit cosmetic more than anything else. And the gear mount now is positioned just under the, just in front, I should say, of the slide for the internal sunshade. Of course, now that can't slide forward, which is not ideal, as I mentioned before, and as a result, that's in that sort of closed position. That won't go up, because to go forward brings the mounts up, to go back brings the slide down. So that's kind of caught there, and you can't bring it forward because in here, this is probably not going to show it too well, but I should get that pinhole there for the helmet, for the cheek pad, to sort of grip onto that little pin, that little stake thing. And as you can see, I'm trying to do this one-handed, there's a fair bit of gap. Let me get that right. There's a fair bit of gap. About here. There we go. I'll drop my helmet. There's a fair bit of gap between where the bolts go in for the proprietary clamp to where it actually would touch. But I think it's quite stable. I don't have an issue with that, thinking that it's going to fly off. What it does do is it just doesn't allow you to bring the visor down, which is not ideal. I'll fix that up in a second. So really, and then what I did was a few trips, a few different sort of filming options this morning with the placement of this clamp here. So it's on that gear mount. Initially it was more straight up and down, and I did some filming and looked at it. It wasn't too bad. It was certainly a lot better than the actual adhesive mount here, but it was still sort of showing more of the console of the motorcycle and not much of the heads up sort of road. So thought I will just push it back a little bit, and sure enough it worked out really well. So you'll see that footage coming up now, but that now sort of sits, clips in, and obviously with your head, and you know, it sort of gets pretty parallel. So I think that's a really good sort of, I'll fix all that up there, that's a really good sort of position for the 50C. But like I said, the real embuggerance is that's the real issue there. So I'm waiting for Sena to respond to my email, probably Monday, Tuesday, and if they tell me, look, we don't have a adhesive mount to give you, well, I'm going to question why. They're a massive company, and then I'm just going to have to come up with another solution. Like I said, this one here, that's no good. That's melted to a point where it's just not usable. So without further ado, I'll slice this onto the video of the bike ride this afternoon around the Clyde Mountain, going down into Bateman's Bay from Braidwood and Canberra, and give you an idea of how that footage looks. So yeah, bye bye. I don't know what I'm looking at. I can't see the screen. I think it's recording. And I just don't know. Oh, there we go. Okay. Let's try this. Hopefully this will work now. I don't know what it's fucking doing, apart from just giving me grief. Anyway, we should be good. Make sure there's nothing coming. Alright, let's go. Alright, let's try this camera angle. Up and down. Alright, so I don't know if I've got it on 4K or 180 because I can't see the screen. Two reasons, because of the sunscreen, and then secondly because it's so bright. Also because of the sunscreen. That was a really bad corner, Simon. You came in there way too hot. Okay, but it looks like it's recording, so I haven't lost anything, but this is all about trial and error today, just getting an idea of its little bugs. So the real issue today with the camera was the, I suppose, the unstable nature of the software. Whereas you'd be riding along and connected to the camera app and also to the Sena motorcycles app, and you'd switch between the two and return, for example, back to the camera mode, and the Wi-Fi would be lost. So you have to physically then turn off the system, like doing a cold reboot, and then go back through the Sena motorcycles apps to basically get it all Bluetooth back up, and that generally happens quite quickly, but it's still a process before going through the Wi-Fi stage of the camera app. Whereas you've got to turn on your unit, hit camera to hit the camera button on the unit to affect the Wi-Fi, go into your Wi-Fi, turn that on, find the Sena 50C, like name, and then link it up basically, and providing you stayed on the camera, then generally it was somewhat stable. But if you went back to change a song or whatever, whatever you had to do within your phone, then you'd lose that link. So that was a real buggerance, and quite dangerous actually. There were a few times around the Clyde where I had to essentially pull over because I wanted to record this footage, but I couldn't get the link with the app. So that was an embuggerance, and also too, double demerit points in New South Wales over the Australia Day long weekend, 5 days of it. Essentially using your mobile phone, caught by the police, 8, maybe 10 points with a bit of speeding on top of that. You could lose your license pretty well much straight away. So that was a real issue I found today, and I'll talk more about some of those things as the video progresses. Okay. And the Misty Mountain Road. No cars coming? Just that far quick. Alright, lots of clutch. It's all good. Still recording? Still recording. So as you can see from the footage, the 4K, I just had a look at the metadata. It's not that bad. I mean, without the stability, like you would get on the GoPro or DJI or all those other type of action cameras, it's really not that bad. I think your neck also acts as a bit of a shock absorber too, and it's sort of like a gimbal. I've heard that mentioned before on YouTube by another YouTuber. So it sort of absorbs some of that motion blurriness. And I'm just using like a old version of iMovie on my Mac, so it ain't no Pro or anything like that. And it seems to sort of give you some options to manipulate what you churn out, but ultimately it's pretty basic. So if that's the 4K version, then that's not too bad in terms of no stability. As you know, your 1080 gives you 30 frames and 60 frames per second with the electronic imagery stabilization, but not at the 4K. So I may continue to use the 4K for future videos. What I would add in closing and finishing up is that I was having issues with the SD card on about 3 occasions where the system, on the phone was saying that the SD card wasn't inserted or something along those lines, or it couldn't read to the SD card, and it was almost like it had been deleted. Had been sort of ejected, which I found really bizarre. So once again, having to pull over, reinsert the card. It's all time consuming and it doesn't make any sense. Now I know with the format side of the Sena 50C, you've got buttons you push and you format it that way. So I don't think there's a eject button for the SD within the button selection of the unit, but who knows? And maybe it's just a little quirk. I'm still running the software version 1.0. I need to update it, and hopefully that might cut out all the quirks. So to finish up, look, it's not a bad camera. I've got to do better with the audio, and I think I just need to work on that a bit more. But I'm reasonably happy with the footage, and I hope you are too. I'll do some more of these and see how it all goes, and who knows? Maybe go back to GoPro. So we'll see what happens.